make sure that we don't leave nobody behind. That is why I am going out of my way to.
Okay, so there you have it, the president just mentioning some of the initiatives they've taken up to bring down the cost of living, uchumi wa tumbo. Number one, he's mentioned that the cost of living where Kenya is compared to its peers, and a couple of other things. So what's your major takeaway from the issue of cost of living? Because the general question would be, have we done enough to ensure that Kenyans don't feel the pinch necessarily when it comes to the cost of living? And equally, where do we find the balance between, revenues and providing relief? Collecting revenues and providing relief. Diana, let's start with you.
It is interesting to hear the president come round, and I think he wore black. Allow me first to go back to his dressing. He wore black deliberately to prepare us for grief.
You're wearing black as well?
Yes, you see, because I'm very Kenyan and I have accepted that it will be painful for a long time.
Okay.
And this points to a shift where he's acknowledging that we must do something to ensure that people are not dying of hunger every day. The previous posture was that government would subsidize production and not consumption.
Yes.
But I think a new reality has dawned on government, and now they are starting to do something about consumption. Food, I think they're even mulling over, instead of giving a subsidy around fertilizer, a cash transfer so that there's money in their economy. But he started saying that there are three things that are affecting the cost of living. I got lost in the three things, but I do know there are three things that are making us not get to where we would want to be. First is that confusion and failure to recognize for the different levels of cost of living. Consumption and production, both of them must be given equal attention.
Okay.
When it comes to thinking about, we cannot just think about the future, producing food for the future, factories for the future. For now, we must be alive to service those particular industries.
Okay.
And I think the government, so one of the major things is, again, lack of accountability. You introduce subsidies, you even go and import edible oil, then it does not get to the country. You've taken taxpayers' money in this very constricted fiscal space. Then you flee and steal again. You create a bigger hole. So one is the continued lack of accountability and theft.
Okay.
Without seeing any form of accountability. And then secondly is the fiscal policies that were introduced, particularly in the last year, that are around, I don't know the exact terminology for it in the world of economics, but it is every service, we pay for it. We tax people, we pay for education, we pay for health, we'll try privatize water. Everything, we are paying more when the cost of living is extremely high.
Okay.
So that particular model just causes people to be more poor. Companies realize that whatever they are giving their employees is no longer enough. Their cost of doing business is higher for companies that are in production. What do? They leave the country. So we've seen more people being laid off.
Okay.
You increase taxation and create very many levies all at once. You shock the economy, you shock the stomach, you shock the individual. There's no balance.
Okay.
Again, the cost of living and poverty just increases. There's definitely global issues, but energy, the cost of energy in this country, and the 16% VAT on petroleum will keep increasing this. So those are some of the consideration. I think energy is the closest we come to the global inflation.
Yes.
And then finally, and this is more Professor Iraki, is the confusion around what the central bank does. Are they around for price stability? Are they supposed to be managing inflation? Are they under control of anyone? My reading, of law and so on, the CBK governor must be very independent if they are to steer us out of this particular crisis.
Okay, and Prof, as you come in and even respond to the role of CBK in all this, because we've heard of the statistics, not his as he mentioned, but from World Bank, 5.6% in terms of GDP growth. So if you look at those numbers, 29th fastest growing economy, I think. So when you look at those numbers, it definitely paints a good picture that the economy's avoided that peak, as he mentioned. But when you talk to the people on the ground, that dwindling or the shrinking disposable income is definitely being felt by the common wananchi. So how do we strike a balance at the end of the day between giving reprieve and perhaps maximizing on our collections? Yeah.
I think the question is, are you looking at the forest or are you looking at the trees? If you look at the forest, it looks very beautiful, carpets, but if you go inside the forest, you find some trees have fallen, some trees have stunted, others are burning charcoal and so on.
Yeah.
So I think we also need to look at the trees, not just the forests.
Okay.
I think when you look at the statistics, very good news. But you look at the details, the people on the streets, Wanjiko on the streets, they will tell you a very different story. They tell you there's no money. And I wish he had finished the story as she puts it about the costs of living. One of them is food. There's no doubt that when it rains, the cost of living goes down because you eat, and the supply of food goes up and the price goes down.
Yeah.
But he also should have talked about oil, because oil is a very big factor. Two factors drive inflation in this country: oil and food. And the price of oil has been going up and up. And luckily now the international market, the price is going down. So we are seeing some relief. Yeah. Although what is happening in the Red Sea might negate that because of the chaos around the Red Sea is interrupting the supply lines. But I think the ultimate way to make sure that at the end of the day everybody benefits from this growth is to make sure there is more equity.
Okay.
There's more equality, so that everybody benefits. Like the rising tide, we should lift our boats. And some of the areas that we need to focus on, and she mentioned, is the incentives. Because at the end of the day, if we want to deal with the cost of living, we should have money in our pockets. And we get money in our pockets if there are jobs being created. But are we giving manufacturers incentives? Are we giving entrepreneurs incentives? So if you talk to everybody in the street, they will tell you the taxes are going up. But taxes should not just be seen as getting money for the government. They should also be used as incentives to make people invest. And I'll give you a good example I had 2 days ago. I went to buy a car battery. And I was given a range of batteries from 5,000 to about 15,000. And one of the questions I asked the sellers is, where is this battery from? Two are from Egypt. Okay. One was from a place called Czech Republic. And I was wondering, why are we not manufacturing batteries? And if you go to other industries, you find the same. A lot of people are coming to sell things here instead of manufacturing them. Okay. So when that happens, then you lose jobs. And when people are jobless, even a small adjustment in tax or in prices has a very big effect. But if we had jobs, if we had money in our pockets, we would probably be riding this cost of living much more easily because we have savings. The salary would adjust. But as long as there are no jobs, any other initiative we take or we try to put into place to manage the cost of living will be a problem. Okay. And then finally, central bank. I think worldwide, central banks should be very independent. And that was the purpose, so that they can control the inflation. They can control the monetary policy, like what they did recently. There is the interest rates. The interest rates are going to make the sharing stronger, but at the same time, they are going to make it harder for us to borrow money. And what is going to happen? Less jobs will be created. So there's always that trade-off. Okay. And it is because of those trade-offs that the central bank should be dependent, not directed by anybody else.
Interesting point. I hope our question is answered right there.